I was traveling down Highway 10 on my way to Duluth, Minnesota, late one October night. The cool fall air was a crisp 45 degrees. I quite liked the autumn temperatures, so I had my window rolled down for most of my drive. I worked for the shipping yards down in Superior, and I was scheduled to work at 7 a.m., so I was in a hurry. The only thing I could see were my headlights bouncing off the road and trees as I drove through the night. Driving in general makes me super tired, so you could just imagine how exhausted I felt. I was nearly dozing off when I saw a car parked off to the side of the road. I had nearly hit it, was it not for its shiny silver exterior. The car seemed brand new. I normally do not stop for any strangers, but I had a hunch that this guy really needed some help, especially this late at night. So I stopped the car on the deserted highway, surrounded by forest. Immediately I saw an older man standing in the front of the raised hood. "Hey," I shouted. "Do you need some help?" The man stared at me for a second. I could barely make out what he looked like because he was standing at the edge of the road. He replied in a low, gruff voice.
"Yeah, car troubles. Second time this week this damn car quit on me. If it's not too much trouble, could you give me a ride into town? I live down the road near Remmer."
The man stepped out of the shadows, and I noticed he was wearing an old flannel shirt and ripped jeans. He looked about 50, and his eyes showed some stress. I reluctantly agreed. I watched as the man walked to the back of his truck and pulled out something long and dark. My heart dropped. It was a shotgun. He then opened my door and pulled himself into my car. I was terrified. What was he doing with a gun? I looked at him and said, "Sorry, sir, but can you put that gun in my back seat?" The man just stared at me. He then took a deep breath and set the gun behind my seat. I let out a small sigh of relief, began to drive off. The first thing I noticed was his smell. A strange, greasy stench drifted into my nose, like the man hadn't bathed in at least 2 weeks. I asked him where he was heading from, but he just looked at me and smiled. A few short, awkward moments later, he spoke. With a low voice, he said he was out hunting, and he had come out empty-handed today. I really didn't know what else to say. Well, maybe there's always tomorrow. He didn't make a sound, and we drove in silence. About 5 miles down the road, he put his hand on my knee, though. This sent a massive jolt through my body. I didn't know what to do. Thankfully, he spoke.
"Slow down, boy. I live down here."
I scanned the edge of the road and saw a small, unpaved path. The path was filled with darkness. He motioned with his hands for me to turn onto the dark path. Was I really going down a spooky path in the woods with some random stranger? I really had no choice. I mean, he had a gun, and there was no help for many miles. I was kind of stuck. So I put on my blinker and turned onto the desolate road. I drove for what seemed like at least 20 minutes until we came upon a house. Now, you know those houses you see in horror movies that are falling apart and obviously haunted, and the main character decides to stupidly walk in and die? Yeah, it's one of those houses. Massive dead trees surrounded the dark home. The shutters were rotting away, and it seemed that the screen door in front was ripped to shreds. The man suddenly spoke.
"Here,"
he said.
"I live here."
I stared at him in disbelief. "You live here?" I said. He just looked at me.
"Come inside, boy. I have a reward for you."
No way in hell am I going to walk into some serial killer house with some creepy old man with a gun. "No," I said. "I love helping others, and I don't need any reimbursement for this trip. Really." He put his hand on my knee while he held his gun with his other hand.
"No, I insist,"
he said.
"Come in."
Moments later, I stepped out of the car. I can't believe I'm really doing this, I thought to myself. I can't believe it. I followed the man up his sunken and rotted porch steps The wind was howling in the trees, and I immediately was thinking of a plan to escape. I was not going to go into this house and die tonight. I stood at his front porch and watched him proceed inside and disappear into the dark building. "I think I'm fine right here," I yelled in. "I can wait, really." But the man did not respond. The only sound was the creaking house and the leaves rustling across the cold, dark ground. I was about to run back to my car when I heard crying like a small child. Now, I grew up in a large family with many younger siblings. I know what that crying sounds like. I peered into the house through the front door and called out, "Is anyone there?" I called again, and the crying grew louder. Damn. Why do I have to care? Why can't I leave? But I felt compelled to enter the house. I mean, if this creepy old man is hurting children in there, I have to help. I was about to dial 911 when I realized that I had no service out here. Great, I thought, just great. I'm gonna die. I stepped into the house. The same greasy, rotting stench hit my nostrils. I nearly heaved. What the hell is that smell? I covered my nose with my shirt, and I walked deeper into the house. I could make out a table with flies covering it, probably laying eggs on the source of the stench. On the floor, I noticed old newspaper clippings and broken bottles. I couldn't make out what the clippings said. They could have been at least 10 years old, due to how faded they looked. How the hell could someone live in this house, I thought. I started pushing around some bottles when I heard it. A low, long creak. What the hell is that? I thought as my heart sunk. I scanned the dark room and didn't see much of anything through the shadowy haze until my eyes fell upon something in the corner. At first, I thought it was the man, so I called out, "Sir, are you okay? Are there children in this house?" No answer. I immediately felt something was terribly wrong. Whatever was in the dark corner was rocking back and forth. A black mass appeared to be heaving, so I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone flashlight and began to shine it at the black shape. This was an immediate mistake. What I saw made my skin crawl and my stomach churn. Sitting in the corner on a large old rocking chair was some sort of person. No, I'm not sure what it was. Its hands appeared to be tied with a dyed red cloth around the armrest of the chair. It was wearing a large white dress splattered with red. Its dark, hollowed eyes had a blank stare. Its mouth appeared to be ripped open, with a massive amount of black liquid flowing from its face. I realized something was off about its face. It was some sort of mask. The figure was shaking. No, it was convulsing back and forth in the chair. It was crying like a wailing child. The same crying I thought I heard when I entered the house. I slowly backed up, attempting to turn around, when suddenly the figure stopped its shaking and stared right at me. It then began to laugh, a dry, heaving laugh. I turned towards a dark hallway, and there, standing at the entrance, was the old man.
"Now you've done it, boy. Now you've done it. You were supposed to follow me."
"I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm gonna go." He held his gun in his arm and stared at me. "Please let me go." He chuckled.
"No, boy. You're staying here."
The man walked over to the figure and ripped its binds from its hands. he freed it.
Go get him, Charlie. Go get him. Come on, boy. Come on.
I stared in horror as the figure stood on its dark, twisted legs. It rose nearly 7 feet tall. I screamed and took off running towards the door. I blasted into the cool, crisp air, but I could hear the creature rushing behind me. The sound of its nails scratching against the rotted floorboards as it followed. I darted to my car and jumped inside. I quickly hit the lock on the inside of my car and turned my headlights on. I watched as the creature climbed down the front steps towards my car. My headlights reflected its horrifying head, its mask which appears to be made out of human flesh. I sped backwards down the forest road and watched as the creature began to chase after my car. I was quick and careful not to hit any trees as I sped backwards out of the forest. That 20-minute car ride felt like hours, until my car jumped out of the woods and onto the old highway. I sped off into the night, not once stopping or looking to see if the creature was following me. I had to get away. I finally stopped my car in some grocery store parking lot once I reached Duluth. I felt like I was holding my breath the entire way. I let out a massive gust of air and sat in silence for at least a minute. The sun was just beginning to rise over Lake Superior. I can't believe that just happened. No way was that real. I was dazed. I felt sick. But it was over. Later that day, I called the police to inform them of what happened. To my surprise, they chuckled and said that they'd had enough prank calls about monsters in the woods. They also threatened me that if I called any more, they'd be filing a police report against me. I couldn't believe my ears. Were they serious? It's been 6 years since this incident took place. I have since moved to Minneapolis and never returned to Highway 10. I refuse to tell anyone what happened that dark October night. I mean, who would believe me? To this day, I occasionally have nightmares of the incident. And sometimes, at night, I still hear those faint toenails scratching against my wood floors in my bed.